What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. We had talked quite a bit about those big Nintendo leaks that took place earlier this week, and since then, more and more leaks have come out, more information, more findings from early stages of things like Super Mario World, and even some email chains back and forth between different Nintendo employees that seem a little odd. And some strange things going all the way back even to Nintendo's own headquarters. Yeah, we're gonna cover some of that today. Also, 343 has now responded to some of the community criticism around Halo Infinite. We'll be taking a look at what they had to say there. And Splinter Cell, it's actually being used again, just not for a game, but I guess it's kind of the next best thing. All of that and more today, guys. As always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we head towards 500,000 subscribers. And we're gonna start today with Moon. I've never played this game, and I was trying to figure out why that is. I double checked, and it came out on the PS1 in 1997. Only in Japan. So it's never been in the West in English until now. Well, about a month from now. August 27th is when it'll be arriving on the Nintendo eShop. It appears as of now it's just going to be a download. In Japan, it actually came out in October of 2019, and in October of this year, there is a physical copy that's supposed to be coming out, but only in Japan. And like I said, I had never really heard about this game necessarily. This is a strange looking game, I will say that, and there have been people who are waiting for it, but looking at some of the trailer, I'm not really sure what I'm doing with this game because they do call it an anti-RPG, and the way they describe that is a game about turning those tropes upside down and seeing what really happens behind the scenes of your favorite RPG video games. Now, I will say, back then, in like the mid to late 90s, we had some very creative games. There were a lot of chances taken. So I am interested enough to take a look at this one when it drops on the eShop August 27th, so keep an eye out then. But it certainly looks like a PS1 game, so also keep that in mind. They didn't do a lot for the visuals. They made the text, I assume, more readable by sharpening it up for high-def displays, but it still looks like a PlayStation 1 game. However, if you have been waiting for this, less than a month, August 27th, you'll be able to pick it up on the Nintendo eShop. Also, if you are one of the apparently many people who have seen some odd-looking emails about a Cyberpunk 2077 beta, those are scams. Those are false. They're not true. Cyberpunk had to tweet this out because I guess they were getting so many requests about it saying, if you recently received an email claiming to be granting you access to Cyberpunk 2077's beta, it's not from us. Unfortunately, there have been more of these being sent out over the past few weeks. They go on to say that when they contact you via email, it's always going to come from the cdprojektred.com address. Yes, and this tends to happen around a few things, like a big game, massive game, once in a generation game, and Cyberpunk's literally been waited for this entire generation, so okay, that at least fits there. And then when new consoles come out, so like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, of course, are coming up. If you get an email about being a tester for one of those, it's also probably a scam because they go, oh yeah, give us your credit card number and your social security number and your phone number and your first, middle, and last name, and what else do we need for your identity so we can steal it? Yeah, that's a lot of what goes into those, so be careful about those. Just keep in mind, I'll tell you if there's a beta for Cyberpunk 2077 because I want to play the beta for Cyberpunk 2077. I don't think there will be one, mostly because they're seem to be having a hard time getting this thing out as they keep delaying it, so I'd rather than just get it done. We're close enough as it is, right? It's only a couple of months out now, so we'll just keep waiting for it. But yeah, disregard any of those emails, especially since you'll probably check and it'll say it's coming from a Gmail anyway. Oh, when we had talked a while ago about how 2K had reached an agreement with the NFL so that they could make non-simulation football games using the NFL teams. Now, as you can see with this headline here, the National Football League Players Association and 2K Games announced a deal to put NFL players in games. So they now have the ability to use the different teams and individual players, which is pretty important, obviously, as they could have, I guess, just done the teams, then had numbers and not called them any of the actual names of the players. Now they pretty much have the ability to make a complete, I would say, NBA Playgrounds-like game, but for football. Now, it could be like an NFL Street setup, I guess, or maybe they'll try something different with it for non-simulation. I'm just picturing something that's more arcadey than what we have with Madden, obviously. But I think it's good to have 2K in there because even though they're not necessarily like competing directly with Madden with like a 2K22 or something, I think EA will still look at this and say, all right, let's see what they're going to put together. And 2K, I'm sure, will at least try to make something that's halfway decent. Right now, it's at least in early development, so we'll see what they come up with. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start right away with these Nintendo leaks that have, there's been more and more coming out, okay, throughout the week. More of that massive Giga leak has been combed through. There's some pretty cool stuff in there. Check this out. This is my favorite one so far because it makes a ton of sense. I didn't really think about it too much, but it was posted on Twitter. You can see it says, Mario with wings. It's true. Via the Nintendo leaks, various in-development sprites of Super Mario World, Mario with wings were found, likely the precursor to the cape. I didn't really think too much about it until now, but you grab a feather in Super Mario World and you get a cape to fly. It makes a lot more sense to get, wings, like is seen here. I wonder what the reason for the change was to grab them and then you turn. Maybe it's because Yoshi would also have wings, right? When Yoshi would eat like a blue shell, or if you had a blue Yoshi, he'd get like little wings on his sides. Maybe they thought, oh, if Mario has wings and Yoshi has wings, it'll look a little strange, and they went with the cape. I don't know. Maybe they just wanted to shift over to something that looked like you were kind of a superhero when you're flying around, but it does make a lot more sense to grab the feather and then get wings on your back rather than a cape. Now, some of the other ones I really liked were rounded up by Switcher GG, where they spotted several different Discord conversations and Twitter posts and all kinds of things. But they did find that the Wii startup disc appears to be part of these leaks. And you might be wondering what that is. Well, originally when the Wii was coming out and it was sent out to retailers, apparently they used startup discs in place of the system being able to start up and have like its full home screen on its own. It needed help to get there because they were still rolling out a lot of that to the system itself while they were manufacturing it. So they had startup discs that you would pop in and it would get you to that home screen that we all know, of course, with the Wii. And we've never seen these actually surface to the public online. And it looks like so far two have been found. That could be for two different regions or two different firmware versions. It's very interesting for people who are into like preserving the history of these systems when they release. So that's really cool to see. There is also a Wii remote that apparently is a prototype, although I think I've seen this before as a dev kit Wii remote. So who knows? Maybe it was a prototype used on a dev kit. And then things start to get a little odd. Okay, so one thing that was spotted apparently are a ton of email chains between different Nintendo employees doing, I guess you'd say, extracurricular activity in the office area, okay? But then we get to a point where it looks like the leak goes even further than we were thinking, and things start to get a little strange. Apparently the office floor plan is part of this, where people are spotting the entire Nintendo headquarters floor plan, which is weird. I don't really know why that would be a part of this leak, but I guess now they can map out and figure out which room Mother 3 is being held in. I don't know. I don't really know why that would be next to the Wii leaks that we're talking about, the startup disc and Mario World with like wings on his back. And then, oh look, there's the Nintendo office floor plan. I have a strong feeling though that these floor plans are very outdated, right? Like, I mean, come on, if this was during the GameCube and the Wii, I'm sure offices have been moved around and changed. Who knows, maybe they even did construction on the building since then. So very weird to see this, but yes, a lot more stuff coming out. Keep an eye out because like some of the stuff coming out from here is very, very cool to see. It's certainly things we weren't supposed to, but like, hey, Mario grabbing a feather and getting his wings on his back makes sense. And now we know. Next up, let's talk about 343 and their response to the Halo Infinite gameplay criticism online. A lot of that I've seen is based around the visuals because it doesn't look like a next-gen game necessarily, but the gameplay everyone seems happy with because it looks like old school Halo. That's what I wanted. I wanted to go back from what we got with 4 and 5 to like 1 or 2 or 3, Halo. So it was really odd to see these two different opinions. Gameplay is good. Visuals look very off. So 343 did post a fairly long blog post here, kind of just responding to all of this and talking about what they're going to do about it. First, we want to acknowledge that yes, we've heard the feedback coming from parts of the community regarding the visuals in the Halo Infinite campaign demo. While we see and hear far more positive than negative, we do want to share a bit more context from our perspective. There are two key areas being debated around the community. overall art style, and visual fidelity. Based on our learnings from Halo 4, Halo 5, and Halo Wars 2, along with strong community feedback, we decided to shift back towards the legacy aesthetics that defined the original trilogy. With Halo Infinite, we're returning to a more classic art style, which was a key message going back to the very first reveal that garnered enthusiastic and positive responsive. This translates to a more vibrant palette, cleaner models and objects, and less noise, though it doesn't mean less detail. While we appreciate this may not be everyone's personal preference, we stand by this decision, and we are happy to see it resonating with so many fans around the world. The second theme being discussed involves visual fidelity. Negative feedback in this area includes comments around characters and objects appearing flat, simplistic, and plastic-like, lighting feeling dull and flat, and object poppin'. We've read your comments, we've seen the homemade examples of retouched content, and yes, we've heard the Digital Foundry assessments. Hey, Digital Foundry getting a shout out there on the Halo Waypoint blog. In many ways, we are in agreement here. We do have work to do to address some of these areas and raise the level of fidelity and overall presentation for the final game. The build used to run the campaign demo was a work in progress from several weeks ago, with a variety of graphical elements and game systems still being finished and polished. While some of the feedback was expected and speaks to areas already in progress, other aspects of the feedback have brought new opportunities and considerations to light that the team is taking very seriously and working to assess. We don't have firm answers or outcomes to share yet, but the team is working as quickly as possible on plans to address some of the feedback around detail, clarity, and overall fidelity. The team is committed and focused on making sure we have a beautiful world for players to explore when we launch. Okay, so that was fairly long, but I wanted you guys to get the full context of what they were saying here. I do like the response, first of all, because they could just ignore it and move on and just, when it releases, it'll release, and then you guys will see what it looks like. Obviously, they are trying to deal with everything around the campaign demo that they showed. It wasn't like a long demo either, and I still think it was a strange area to demo and show off because it didn't show anything new. I mean, it showed the grappling hook, all right, but like visually, yeah, it fell flat. Digital Foundry even talked quite a bit about just how like the lighting was a strange spot for them to show this off with. But to see them talk about, yes, we were trying to go back to classic Halo, great. And to see them talk about how they're going to try to continue updating the fidelity leading into launch, here's hoping. That's really how I'm seeing this, because Halo Infinite is, I feel like if the console, the Xbox Series X, wasn't launching this holiday, Halo Infinite probably wouldn't be coming out this holiday. I really think they want it to launch alongside the system so that they can push the system, Game Pass, obviously the game itself, all of this coming together to make one big holiday push. And I think, really, if you think about it, the Xbox Series X and Game Pass both hinge on Halo Infinite coming out. Like that's a big time game, big time release. It's been 5 years, right, since the last Halo game. This has to be good. I think they understand that. And look, they did a lot of work with the Master Chief Collection, receiving a lot of feedback from the community. And I do think that Halo Infinite, even if it launches in kind of a poor state, will eventually be good. But I would like these games to launch good, just like day one, straight up. So we'll see what happens. But finally, they at least responded. It was a good response. Here's hoping they can make it work and get to Halo Infinite launch day with a good product. Next up, let's talk about the 3DS and Super Mario 64. I'm not talking about playing Mario 64 DS through backwards compatibility technically on your 3DS. I'm talking about how people have managed to port the decompiled Super Mario 64 that was on PC to the 3DS. Yeah, like they're actually playing that now on the 3DS. In fact, they're already starting to work to improve it as it was ported over and made available online for people to check out. It looks like it's running at 30 frames per second. There are also several videos that were posted online showcasing this. VGC had the story here, kind of going over it, and it certainly shows, I guess, just how excited people are for the decompiling of Super Mario 64, and it shows how much you can do with it when it is decompiled. I mean, really, I guess this game can go pretty much everywhere now, right? The PC has been the biggest thing because there have been so many advancements made on it already. Like, I'm just waiting for like full-on ray tracing to show up here. And then we have like Mario 64 going from like, on the N64 to like this crazy 4K ray traced 60 or 120 frames per second, crazy looking game. But seeing it move to the 3DS, yeah, it can be moved, I think at this point, to most systems that can probably handle 3D visuals. It is odd to see it, and like I said before, we already have Super Mario 64 DS, but this one will probably end up looking better over time as people work on it. And now, I mean, who knows where else it'll show up? Do you think it'll go to the Vita? That'd be kind of interesting. You know what? Let's get it ported over to that Atari VCS, then they can have a game. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Splinter Cell, as Variety had an exclusive story on Splinter Cell going to Netflix. Yeah, check out this headline here. Splinter Cell anime series from John Wick writer Derek Kolstad set at Netflix. And apparently they have a 16-episode series set up. And I thought about this and I said, that Splinter Cell could make a really good animated series. Like, I mean, look, Splinter Cell, I know a lot of the fun back then was just how great it looked on like the original Xbox and the PS2, but the story was interesting to go through as Sam Fisher. There were a lot of changes, obviously, as we went from the first one up to the 360 with like Double Agent and Conviction, and the story has evolved quite a bit. They're going to have to probably reboot it, right? Like they'll have to do like their own kind of take on the Splinter Cell universe and Sam Fisher. So I don't think it's going to tell anywhere near the same story. And I'm excited. You have the John Wick producer and writer coming in there to make a new Splinter Cell series on Netflix. No clue when it's coming out. Probably won't be for a while, but that is exciting stuff. Now, does that mean Ubisoft, can you put together a game to go alongside of this if it's not coming out for a couple of years? And we'll finish up with a comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from the Blue Groove, saying next gen Switch probably already started a few years ago at this point, not like Nintendo R&D department stood looking out a window the last 3 years. Yeah, they're always working on something. I mean, we see like Labo, of course, and that was created by, I believe, another department, but then of course they probably had to work with R&D so that it all worked together. And there is, I'm sure, a division inside Nintendo right now who's already been working on the Switch 2 for a while, probably since the original Switch came out, because that's their job. They're not going to just stop and call it a day for like the next 3 years while the Switch is out in the market. They're already developing concepts and all kinds of stuff. We heard that the Switch was already being developed like when the Wii U came out. They were like, wow, this could work if we didn't need to have it within like 8 feet of the TV at all times. What if you could switch it? Yeah, so yes, the Switch 2 probably being worked on. It'll be interesting to see when they actually announce it. I'm still thinking 2.5 to 3 years from now. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's the Nintendo leaks, what do you think's next, or what's been most interesting for you so far that's come out, and what can 343 do to fix up Halo Infinite for you with those visuals and make it for release day with a good looking product. Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.